Hello and welcome back to our channel. I am Amadi and here with me is the ever smiling
Grin.
This is a podcast where we don't shy away from gruesome details, where some things may be triggering and hard to hear, so listeners' discretion is advised. Get yourself in the right frame of mind, and now let's talk about dark shit.
Let's do it.
I want to start off with first asking our listeners a question. Since my voice is apparently going to stay like this for a bit longer, I don't know how much longer because I just stay coughing all day. I want to know, are you guys all okay with still listening to me talk when it comes to my episodes, or would you rather listen to Grin speak until my voice heals?
Yes, let us know.
Okay, now let's start talking. With today's episode, there is going to be a common theme spanning throughout hundreds of years. We are starting with ancient times, ancient Egyptian times. We are talking about Middle Kingdom between 2040 and 1782 BC, where one of the oldest deities was created. This deity was said to have been created through the sun god Ra's eye when he looked at Earth and was disappointed. He heard the humans talking that Ra was becoming old and he needed to be overthrown. So for this reason, he was furious. And he created Sekhmet. And her whole purpose was to destroy humans for their disobedience and for them not living with the principles of Mayet, which means truth, justice, balance, and harmony. For simpler terms, law and order. She was also known by other names like Goddess of Death and Healing, Lady of Slaughter, one before whom evil trembles, the Mauler, and many other names that run with this theme. Her look was described as one with a figure of a woman who wore a tight-fitting sheath as a gown, with the head of a lion who donned a sun disk above her head, representing the Eye of Ra, and a uraeus, which is a cobra, on her forehead. They believed she had a cure for every problem. People would offer her food and drink, play music, and burn incense. They would whisper into the ears of cat mummies and then offer them to her. Priests would even perform rituals to appease her and her anger, because since her whole reason of being, she was here to destroy humans. So she already has this one thing in mind. She was a lioness who fed on fear and blood of her enemies. She was bloodthirsty. After her creation, she would, for the next few days, go on to destroy every man and woman in sight, killing thousands. The sun god Ra decided that the humans have had enough punishment and ordered Sekhmet to stop. But by this time, her thirst for blood was too great, and Ra saw this. So he ordered 7,000 jars of beer. He then dyed the beer with red juice from the pomegranate, and it started to look like blood. So then he floods the plains of Dendera. When Sekhmet arrives to Dendera to continue her spree, she notices the red field, thinking that it was blood. So she proceeds to drink it. After drinking all that so-called blood, she passes out for 3 days straight. When she finally awakens, her bloodlust had diminished, and she pretty much forgets all about it. And she all of a sudden becomes this peaceful deity. And in some other myths, she became the goddess Hathor, who was all about peace and nurture. But that's there. So we jump to the 5th century and head to Ireland, to a town named Slot-Avery. There lived a brutal ruler named Abartek. He was described as a dwarf, but some said he looked deformed. He was said to have magical powers and that he treated his townspeople so bad that they all feared him. Because of their fear, the townspeople hire a chieftain to get rid of him. This chieftain goes to Abartek, slays him, and then buries him in a standing position to honor him just like his statues. A day later, Abartek arises from his grave at night, demands his townspeople to slice their wrists and pour their blood into a bowl so he can drink it to regain energy and continue with his tyranny. The townspeople then call the chieftain back to finish what he started. And again, Abartek gets murdered and buried standing up again. And the same thing happens again. He arises. This goes on to happen a few more times, each time requesting more blood. Then one day, a druid man comes to the chieftain, advises him to use a sword made out of yew wood to slay him and to bury him upside down. This worked, and he never returned, and the terror stopped. We are now at the 12th century. We're visiting Berwick or Berwick upon Tweed, in a town in England that eventually went under Scottish rule. We have William of Newborough. He wrote about a wealthy merchant who was known as kind, and then one day he dies due to a plague. But for some reason, this wasn't the last time the village people would see him. At dusk, he would arise and walk the streets. He would tell the people that he would run into that there would be no peace until he was set aflame and burned to ashes. This went on for several nights, so the villagers decided to exhume his body. When they did, they dismembered him, threw his body parts into flames, but they were not quick enough because by this time, half of the village had died due to the plague. So are you understanding my theme yet?
Plagues.
Okay. October 25th, 1879, in Hanover, Germany, born as the sixth child out of 7 to parents Ollie and Joanna Haarmann, was Frederick Henrik Karl Haarmann, known as Fritz or Frick. After his mother gave birth to him, for the next 12 years, she became sick and had to stay in bed. Because of this, it was said that she pampered him and spoiled him, and for some reason encouraged him as a young boy to play with dolls and dresses instead of doing masculine things. And for some reason, from such a young age, he had a huge dislike of his father. They ended up never, ever getting along. In an article in crimelibrary.org, Fritz had 2 different traits. One, he had feminine tendencies, and this was shown throughout his whole school life. The second, well, he had a pleasure in causing fear and horror to others. He was sadistic. He would tie up his sisters, and at night, he would go and knock on the windows and tap on of all the neighbors and tell tales of supernatural creatures that would roam at night. After the passing of his mother, his grades in school were not going so well, so his father placed him into military school in Neubrisa in April of 1895. He was actually excelling there. He was said to be a good gymnast, an obedient soldier, but for some reason, he started to have lapse in consciousness and bouts of seizure. So he ended up getting discharged for medical reasons, and he was sent back home in November of 1895. Since he had to return home to his father in Hanover, he went to work for his father at a local cigar factory. Just before he got his 1-year mark, he committed his first crime. He started to begin sexually molesting young boys. It was never found out how many boys he did this, but he eventually got captured and charged by the police. But the town doctor deemed him to be incurably deranged, so they sent him to the mental asylum instead. By this time, he is now 18 years old, and it was never said what exactly happened while he was in the asylum, but whatever happened, it was enough to traumatize him to never want to return to a mental asylum ever again. After 6 months of being in there, he managed to escape and ran off to Switzerland. After 2 years of being away, it's now 1900, he then returns back to Hanover and meets a woman. They get together, get married, and soon become pregnant. And remember, I said it was 1900. By 1901, he realized this wasn't for him and ran off to join the military, despite his father finally being proud of him because he thought with this marriage, he was actually being normal and keeping him away from his nasty past doings. During his first year in service, he was described as being an obedient soldier. He was doing good. He described it as living in the best time of his life until he was diagnosed with an unspecified mental deficiency when he collapsed during an exercise one time. After this, he was then sent home to his father once again. And during this time, his father tried to get him committed permanently, but the town's doctor considered this to be morally inferior, and at the age of 24, he was released to live amongst the normal society. So even though he was receiving his military pension every month, in 1904, he was classed as disabled, and since he couldn't hold a job down, he went into conning. He was a con man. He did petty crimes and then burglaries. During this time, he was either in and out of prison or in custody. In 1914, he was imprisoned for 5 years for stealing from a warehouse. Following this release, he immediately became a part of a smuggling ring and pretty much begged to be a police informant. During this time of helping the police, he, at the same time, was committing sexual offenses again of countless young men, all who never filed anything against him because they were all too ashamed. And then on September 25th, 1918, something snapped in him. Not sure what, but he met 17-year-old Fritz Roth and then murdered him. There was actually witnesses. It was Friedel's friends who last saw him with Frick. So the police go and raid his place. But when they get in there, they find a 13-year-old boy in his bed that he had groomed for 9 months. Because of this, they arrest him for sexual assault. And I'm guessing because of this, they forget to search his place for anything related to Friedel. So then they clear him of any suspicion. Even though if they actually were to have searched his place behind the stove, they would have found the severed head of Friedel's.
What?
Yes.
Wait, what? So this man went out and killed somebody. There were witnesses, took the person's head and hid it behind the stove, and at the same time was grooming a boy.
Yes.
A little boy.
A little boy.
For 9 months. And nobody... Was the little boy missing? Were people looking for the boy?
No, it was said that he would go and search for homeless young men, and that's how he would find them. So I think this boy was homeless.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Soon after his release from jail, after the sexual assault of the 13-year-old, he meets a man at a central station named Hans Grans. Hans made a little living by selling old clothes and by selling himself, and that's how the two met. They soon become friends and eventually become lovers. In 1922, the two move into an apartment together, and then, for some reason, Fritz starts randomly killing again. When Fritz was in the middle of his second killing to a 17-year-old named Fritz Franke, Hans walks in and witnesses it all. It was said that the two teamed up together after this to lure young men to the apartment so Fritz can do his doing, and then they would sell the clothes of the young boys for profit. By May 1924, Fritz was said to have claimed the lives of 24 boys. He would give them love bites before sexually molesting their dead bodies. And when I say love bites, well, okay, so he would bite through their windpipe, and this part is graphic, but he testified that he would be straddling them while biting into their Adam's apple and then make 2 cuts into their abdomen. He would proceed to pull out the intestines, put them in a bucket, soak up the blood. Some say he would also consume the blood and crush the bones until the shoulders broke. He then would get the heart, the lungs, and kidneys, chop them up and put them in the bucket as well. For the dismembered parts that he couldn't flush down the toilet, he would throw them into the Line River. For 9 months, he went on to kill 12 more young men in this exact way. In May of 1924, over 500 bones of missing boys were washed ashore in the Line River, striking fear into the town folk of Hanover.
Wait, I have a question. Wait, so he's killed 24, and then he went on to kill another 12. And by the end of it...
No, it was 24. It was said to be 24 by the end of 1924. By May of 1924, it was supposedly 24 people.
Wow. And the other guy just got a kick of it?
See, okay, I read 2 different things. I read that he decided to be a part of it, not the killing, but just a part of luring the young men to the apartment so Fritz can do his evil doings.
He's just as guilty of that.
Mm-hmm. But then I also read in a different article that he knew nothing, even though he lived there.
No, I don't buy that.
I don't buy it either.
I smell fish.
After his last murdered victim, 17-year-old Eric de Vries, there was a huge manhunt. There was already a growing suspicion of Fritz Haarmann because the police start to remember about the sexual molestation claims in 1898 and that he was said to have been connected to the disappearance of Friedel Roth. In June of that year, 1924, the police raid his home and find blood stain splatters on his wall. He then tells them that he was in the illegal business of meat trading, and because of that, that's why they were such a mess. Can you take a guess where the meat that the housewives allegedly loved, where that meat came from that he was selling?
It was the boys?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Alleged, supposedly, he was selling meat.
To the people.
Yep. They're selling the clothes of the boys, old used clothes, like thrifting or whatever.
Yeah.
And selling meat at the same time.
And the people love the meat.
Mm-hmm. He was apparently kind of charming, even though he was awkward.
And they would just go to him and be like, oh, this guy sells the best meat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's sick fuck.
Yep.
And they were all boys, huh?
They were all boys. They were all young boys, yeah. Like teenagers.
Okay, continue.
Yeah. He had no issue confessing to the murder of 50 to 70 boys, but he was only convicted of 24 that they could actually find and connect him to. Haarmann's trial started on December 4th, 1924, and lasted for 14 days. He decided on conducting his own defense, but that didn't matter because by December 29th, 1924, at the age of, 45 or 47, he was sentenced to death. He did ask a few things before the court. One, that he wishes to be killed before Christmas so he can spend it with his mother in heaven. And the second was that Hans was innocent. Hans was convicted of luring one of the boys. So because of that, he was sentenced to life. But because of what Fritz wrote the court, Hans only received 12 years. After he served his 12 years, he left Hanover, attempted to live a normal life, and eventually died of natural causes in 1975.
Hans did.
Hans did.
So were they actually just a couple, like partners?
Okay, so they were a couple. He moved in 1924, I believe. No, sorry. He moved in 1922, and they were a couple. But in one article, I read that even though they were lovers, they lived together, he still preferred women, and at one point had 3 supposed girlfriends always over there at the place, at the apartment. Yes. That's the same article that says that they don't believe that Hans didn't know what was going on, and not even the 3 supposed girlfriends that were also there.
What?
Yeah. Like, I think that article is saying that Hans didn't know any of this, but how did he not? Because they were always there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
He knew.
Oh, yeah, he had to know. Blood stains on the freaking walls. He had to know. Fritz Haarmann was beheaded by guillotine in April 15, 1925, with his last words being, "I repent, but I do not fear death." His head was preserved in a jar by scientists who studied his brain in Göttingen Medical School until 2014, when it was finally cremated. So please tell me you finally got the theme. It's not plague. It's not plague. No.
What? Studying of evil? I don't know.
We'll start with Sekhmet. The goddess Sekhmet was bloodthirsty.
Okay.
And then we have Abartek in Ireland, who would arise every night and ask for the blood of his townspeople to give him energy. And then we had the merchant who would arise at dusk from the graveyard, be walking around town, and then be back at dawn at the graveyard in his grave.
Like a night stalker, kidnapper thing.
And remember that the tyrant ruler, the only way to stop him was a wooden sword had to stab him.
Vampires.
Yes.
I don't know why. I just could not put the pieces together.
That's why Frederick Haarmann, or however you say his name, he was considered the vampire or monster of Hanover. So this vampires, yes.
Okay. I was like, what the fuck?
You're like, is this about plagues?
What's going on? At first, I was like, human sacrifices? I don't know, but it can't be that. I'm like, I don't know.
I thought it was going to be so obvious. I was like, bloodthirsty. He's asking for the other one's asking for the blood so he can drink it.
Should have been like garlic. Edward Cullen.
Oh gosh. No. No. We're not talking about like modern day vampires where they're shiny or what else? I don't know. I don't remember the movie, but yeah, they're not shiny vampires.
Okay.
No. And I think I've heard of the whole garlic thing that, oh no, you know what this is? Hotel Transylvania, the kids movie. Or garlic, like they're not, it doesn't kill them or anything. They're just, it gives it like upset stomach or something.
Yeah, it just gives them the nasties.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like technically like real life vampires.
Okay.
Yeah. Who just have a weird liking of blood.
Maybe we can throw Vlad in there.
Vlad the Impaler.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fun for like later. But this one was actually pretty fun because it wasn't just one case. I wanted to actually like learn, like, I wonder where it was actually spoken about other cases or other myths or tales that sounded like they could have been a vampire.
So it's been around for centuries then.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think I want to say the first written. Actually, you know what? There's so many different articles and different sayings. But one of them I think I saw was the first written was in 1040. I forgot from where though. They've been everywhere.
You can also throw Bathory in there. Elizabeth Bathory.
Oh yeah. She didn't drink it though. She bathed in it. It's the same thing.
Yeah. She would drain them of their blood.
That's true. I'm thinking of that image from I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Hostel?
No, I haven't.
You haven't seen Hostel?
No.
Am I thinking of it right? Yeah, it's Hostel. I'm not sure if it's number one or two. It's where these very wealthy people can go on this black market type of app, it looks like, and you can buy people. And this one lady, she bought, I think it was certain, like if you're American, you're worth this much. If you're from India, you're worth this much kind of thing. So this one lady, she bought a girl and she hung her over this like ancient looking, like I think it was underground bathtub kind of thing. I think, I don't remember now, above ground bathtub. She had the girl hanging and then she sliced her. And then am I allowed to say this stuff? I don't know if I'm allowed to say this stuff. But the blood like was there draining all over her body while she was bathing in it.
I definitely have not seen this, but maybe I might.
Do you watch horror movies or do you just listen to true crime?
No, I watch a variety of things. I don't stick to one certain genre.
I think that's what I do. I just stick to one genre because I know I like it.
Although,
even though it can sometimes be very cheesy, like really bad.
Yeah, but that's with movies for me. Because podcasts, like, yes, I only stick to true crime.
Okay. But yeah, so that was my little fun little tale into vampires.
Well, thank you for educating us. I could not piece the puzzle together. But then again, I've never been good at puzzles. And yeah, thank you for the lovely image that you've just painted. You're
welcome. And it makes you think of like what other tales or myths from way back when, if you actually like read them again, like, oh, is that a vampire? That's vampiric or whatever.
Honestly, the only ones I can think of are Vlad the Impaler and Elizabeth Bathory. I did hear of a conspiracy too, actually. And I think I talked about it a little bit during our little conspiracy video. The royal family. Allegedly, they're vampires.
The royal family in
the UK. Sorry, I should probably specify. Yeah, the royal family in the UK, specifically. What's the name of their king? George.
I was never one of those people who follow that family.
Me neither. I know whoever the king is now, the old guy. They claim that he is a vampire.
How? He's aging. Don't vampires not age, or does this one age?
I have no clue how the logic works for those people who think
this. Why would they say they're vampires?
They claim this because he gets very frail, I guess, like very sickly when he goes out into the sun. He has porphyria, which is what people call the so-called vampire disease.
That's exactly what I was trying to look up right now. It starts with a P, right?
Yes.
I read about that earlier, that the people with that disease get weak when they're in the sun
Porphyria is actually a group of disorders, some of which cause skin blisters and other cutaneous symptoms when skin is exposed to sunlight. It is this fact that is often used to connect porphyria and vampires.
That started many, many, many years ago, around the time when there was talk about vampires. That came about too.
Yes, yeah, because he has it. And people, according to, let me cite my sources. I'm getting this from the medicover-genetics.com. So you can go on their website. But it is stated that it's a very rare inherited blood disorder.
Inherited? So the whole family can be vampires.
Yeah, so I guess it's like passed down. What do you call that? Well, inherited, but
genetics.
Yes.
But yeah, I did read about that one. I forgot to write it down. But yeah, I read that was also connected to like vampires or...
I mean, yeah, because other symptoms also include red or brown urine, abdominal pain, pain in chest, in back or extremities, nausea, vomiting, constipation, diarrhea, anxiety, confusion, hallucinations, paranoia, disorientation, urinary retention or incontinence. Incontinence, thank you. Muscle weakness, paralysis, seizures, breathing problems, palpitations, high blood pressure.
Okay, only one of them sounds like it's related to vampires, just the sun sensitivity.
Fragile skin, infected blisters, changes in skin color, excessive hair growth in affected areas.
Ew, like the parts that blister, all of a sudden you start growing hair out of there?
I guess.
Ew.
Yeah, because you your skin is very, very sensitive to the sunlight. That's like an extreme version.
Why is it that's the part that made me feel weird?
That's the part that got
That's the only part that made me feel weird.
Wait, how did we get here? Oh, yes, because of the royal family. Yes.
And you saying that they're vampires.
Well, the king at the moment has this, whoever the king is in the UK. Oh, King George.
Oh, it is King George?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't think of any other names, really.
And yes, you're right. It is a disease that is linked to vampire myths.
Boom, I told you.
But it's only because it's a real rare blood disorder. So I guess we just debunked a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, he's not a vampire. He just has a disease.
Huh. Who knew? You just had to ask Google.
Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed this episode of little talks about somewhat real and mythical vampires.
Yes.
And also, please let me know if you guys just want me to sit it out and let my voice and me heal. You guys are okay with just listening to Grin talk
if you just want her reactions.
Yeah, let me know, because I don't want you guys to suffer in hearing me talk, because I have to sometimes whisper just to get something out.
Yes, and we don't want that.
Just give us your opinion. Let us know what you guys think.
Yeah. Oh, and also let us know, what is the earliest vampire myth, legend, lore that you've heard of?
All right, you guys. You all be safe.
Be well.
And see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.